It may not be the news Bills fans are waiting for, but Brandon Beane still making some noise in free agency. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Billievers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to this breaking news edition as Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills are still going at it in free agency. We knew that with the excuse me, with Barkley being a free agent this season, that backup quarterback may be in a thing we needed to address. I thought they might stick with Jake Fromm. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills had other things in mind. The Buffalo Bills do sign a one-year deal with Mitchell Trubisky. King Can comes in here and says he does not like this. Well, before we can say if we like it or hate it, hey, Brian, good to see you. T-Race says the same. Before we can decide if we like it or hate it, we have to know what the contract details are. And I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. See, there's reasons why you cannot like this move. And as you guys come in here, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. And thank you for joining me on this edition of Believers Talk. If you're new to Believers Talk, make sure you hit that subscribe button for continuing Buffalo Bills content. We can get a good tight end or defensive tackle, says Joseph Rodriguez. I'm going to play a little bit devil's advocate because, at first I didn't like it either, but then you start thinking about it and you're like, wait a second, Brandon Beane always has a plan. So what's the plan here? What's the plan, Phil? Right? You need to figure out what the plan is for the Buffalo Bills when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky. Brian Bowers comes in and says, not a bad move for a backup. Listen, I'm not going to lie. You get the number 2 overall pick of a draft as your backup quarterback. It's not a terrible thing, right? And you think about Mitchell Trubisky, everything that Bears fans are saying about him, how he's not that great. What's the difference between what Bears fans are saying about Mitchell Trubisky now compared to what analysts were saying about Josh Allen when he came out in the NFL draft? The Buffalo Bills, Brian Dable, they feel like, more importantly, Ken Dorsey, feel like they can work with any quarterback and bring him around and make him into a better quarterback. And track record shows with Josh Allen that they absolutely can do that. Brian Bowers comes in and says, trade bait. So here's what I'm thinking. Buffalo doing a live stream. The Buffalo Bills, like their page. I didn't see it going on, but I go live as soon as I can. But anyway, here's the thing about Mitchell Trubisky, right? Mitchell Trubisky is going to sign a my son comes down wearing his Bills hat. Mitchell Trubisky is going to sign a backup type deal, right? Where he's going to be a backup quarterback to Josh Allen. So let's say that there is a quarterback in training camp in preseason or at the beginning of the regular season, that gets injured, right? Something happens. Well, Brandon Beane can then be on the phone and say, hey, listen, guys, we have this guy, former number 2 overall pick, pretty cheap, that can definitely come in and be a good starting quarterback somewhere. Let's say we turn Mitchell Trubisky into a 4th-round draft pick. Let's say we turn Mitchell Trubisky into a decent quarterback. There are still some things that we can have when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky that you need to kind of think outside the box, right? I know that right now, Josh Allen's obviously our starter, and that's not going to change due to the snooze. I think that some people are going a little overboard thinking that Mitchell Trubisky might compete with Josh Allen. I don't think that's the case. Why would they get Mitchell Trubisky when they have Josh, says Triple Core? Well, you need a backup quarterback. And so our backup quarterback was going to be a free agent this season. And so the Buffalo Bills decided to get a backup quarterback. And listen, I personally thought we'd keep Jake Fromm as our backup. Maybe this means that Jake Fromm, I saw that Greg Thompson from Cover One, thought that could mean that Fromm is trade bait, maybe going to the Eagles for a certain tight end that I know everyone wants. Give me 1 second here, guys. But yeah, I think that if you're a Bills fan, you need to think outside the box here. You can't just look at this and say, why did the Buffalo Bills, why did Brandon Beane get Trubisky? Brandon Beane always has a plan, right? There's always a plan when it comes to this type of noise, right? You look at last season, you look at some of the starters that went out for a substantial amount of time, just an idea to trade Mitch. Well, we're not going to trade him right away, but that might be the overall goal here. You think about Dak Prescott going down week 5. You think about Drew Brees breaking some ribs, missing substantial time. Now, in those instances, they had pretty good backups. They had Andy Dalton, and then they had Tyson Hill. But you might run into a team that does not have a good backup, right? And so if a starter goes down, let's say the Broncos, they lose their starter, and they would have a backup really planned. You could trade Trubisky there. And depending on how desperate a team is, maybe they will be willing to give up a 3rd-round pick for a guy who has starting potential in this league, a winning quarterback. Let's not get this wrong. Mitchell Trubisky was a winning quarterback going to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years with the Chicago Bears. So you cannot be upset with the idea that the Buffalo Bills bringing a winning quarterback as their backup. Josh Allen's no longer that young guy anymore that needs a guy like a Derek Anderson or needs a guy like a Matt Barkley to watch him, to make sure that he's reading things correctly, to talk to him on the sideline. Now Josh Allen can be that guy. Josh Allen can be the guy that when he's on the sideline while the defense is on the field, talking to Mitchell Trubisky, saying, this is what I see. This is what it's going for. How much do you think they will pay him, Mitchell Trubisky? I'm going to say anywhere between $4 and $5 million. I think a lot of it's going to be incentive-based. Maybe a decent size of it is going to be a signing bonus. That way it doesn't cost too much against the 2021 salary cap. But I do think that it's going to, like, obviously it's not going to be anything like the veteran minimum or anything like that. So I would say probably between $4 to $5 million. He might be one of the higher paid backup quarterbacks in the league going into it. Because remember, this guy was a second-round draft pick. And like I said, he is a winner. He knows how to win. And so we saw that Brandon Beane went live. I mean, everyone was excited, right? Brandon Beane had the press conference set for 2 o'clock, and then they backed it up to 3 o'clock, and everyone's starting to think, why did they delay it that hour, right? What were they waiting for? And truth is, everyone wanted it to be Zach Ertz. Truth is, they were getting Mitch Trubisky. They called Matt Barkley, thanking him for his time, which is funny to me because John Brown said he didn't get the same consideration when they released John Brown. When you release someone, I feel like, to me, Matt Barkley was a free agent, so he knew the only way he was going back to Buffalo was if the Buffalo Bills re-signed him. John Brown got released, straight up released. Why would you call him before the news spread and say, listen, thank you for your time. Obviously, things are not going to work out for the money that you're due to make this season. But I don't know. I mean, again, that's just me personally. I found it surprising that the Buffalo Bills delayed a press conference to make sure they let Matt Barkley know. Dragon Wolf says 1 year, $2.5 million for Trubisky. That's a great deal. So if you miss out on a starting quarterback, your starter gets hurt. The Buffalo Bills, Brandon Beane can be on the phone and be like, listen, I got a guy, was a starter, had a winning record as a starter, and he's going to be cheap this year. Because remember, it's only 1 year deal. So we can take care of some of that contract, right? Move it to another team so they can pay for it. I think this could work out for the Buffalo Bills exponentially. Now, again, maybe he's here for the whole year and nothing happens. But we just went from, I was going to say, if Josh Allen got hurt, we have no way of winning this division, right? If Josh Allen got hurt, there's no way the Buffalo Bills could win this division. With a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, if Josh Allen was to get hurt, you know that he can anchor the ship. Now, it's not going to be as star-studded as it would be with Josh Allen. But if you have that defense performing back at a top 10 level, you have this running game picking up a little bit. You still have Stephon Diggs. You still have some playmakers on the outside. Mitchell Trubisky, if needed, can get the job done. And, that makes me a little happy to know that we have that guy. He can probably play 500 ball if Allen gets hurt. And that's all you want out of your backup quarterback. When you have a backup quarterback, you ask him to play 500 ball until your starter gets better. To be honest with you, I think it's possible Mitch Trubisky could be better than 500 if we give him the shot. Over his career, you look at Mitchell Trubisky, again, second-round draft pick back in, I think it was 2018. No, that's too soon, Joe. Back in 2017, he was the draft pick. Remember, the Bears traded with the 49ers to move up one spot to get Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. But in 4 seasons with the Chicago Bears, he was a Pro Bowler. In 2018, made it to the Pro Bowl, having an 11-3 record as a starter with the Chicago Bears. Has a 64% completion percentage as in his career. Has thrown for over 10,000 yards, 64 touchdowns. You're talking about 37 interceptions. That's a number that really scares you if you are a fan of the Buffalo Bills and you think about Mitchell Trubisky as a starter. He's got better physical tools than Barkley. He does, and it does add that element to the backup quarterback room, the quarterback room overall, of just knowing that if Allen is to go down, that you have a guy who could potentially play 500 or better ball until Allen comes back. And again, you look at the the trade potential of this pickup. It's not all bad. That's all I'm saying. Listen, when this pick first came in, I was a little confused as well, right? What is Brandon Beane thinking here, bringing in a Mitchell Trubisky? Now, does Mitchell Trubisky not believe he's a starter in this league? Because if a starting quarterback loses confidence, that's one of the worst things that can happen to a starting quarterback, is he loses his confidence and feels like he can't get the job done. So come to Buffalo. Hey, XCD, good to see you again. If you guys are new, hit that subscribe button. We continue to keep you up to date on Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres news. Still looking for a new head coach for the Buffalo Sabres. Again, I think that's going to last until the end of the regular season, but we'll see what happens. But I think that it's good to bring him into Buffalo. You have a good quarterback coach here in Dorsey. You have a good offensive coordinator in Dable. Thank you, XCD. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button. You have a good quarterback coach in Dorsey. You have a good offensive coordinator in Dable. Give him that confidence back and say, listen, the Bears gave up on you too soon. If you listen to Greeny, right, Mike Greeny on ESPN Radio, he always talks about how the Bears gave up on Trubisky for no reason. Again, 2 out of 3 years the Bears made the playoffs. So when was the last time the Bears could say 2 out of the last 3 years they made the playoffs? Now this year they might have backed in or something, but guess what? A playoff spot. You can't take that away from him. So you look at Mitchell Trubisky as a starter in his career, 29-21 in 50 games as a starter. Again, a winning quarterback, and that's what you want to see in your backup. Again, not as good as that Pro Bowl year in 2018, but he's still a young guy going to enter his 5th year in the league, going to be 27 years old at the start of the NFL season. Bring him in. And again, if you get trade bait for him, if you get 4th round draft pick for him, then that's awesome. If you need him at some point in the season, you feel comfortable, right? You're not happy Josh Allen's going out at any point in the season, but you feel comfortable saying, hey, we have a guy that was just a starter last season, led a team to the playoffs back-to-back year. 2 fat guys says it's a great pickup. We should have a tail CV. We do need a backup cornerback still, even though we did retain Levi Wallace yesterday. So we do want to talk about that a little bit as well. Levi Wallace telling his agent, listen, don't listen to any other offers. I want to be in Buffalo, because he knows, and this has been something that has been said by multiple sources about multiple players. Matt Milano says he wanted to stay with the Buffalo Bills, told his attorney, make it happen. Now you hear about Levi Wallace saying, hey, make this happen. They want to stay a Buffalo Bill. And you want to talk about good culture. You want to talk about having a good team around you. That's what the Buffalo Bills, that's what Coach McDermott, that's what Brandon Beane have created here. They've created, remember last season when we got Jefferson, we got Butler, and we were all a little concerned, like, wait a second, these guys, character issues, our warning flags kind of went up. Like, are we sure we want to bring these guys into the locker room? And here's what happened. When you have good culture, they take those guys that have a little bit of a checkered past and they turn them around and say, no, this is how winning football gets done. And now the Buffalo Bills have that. We always had that prior to McDermott. And it's a good feeling to know that Buffalo Bills players want to stay in Buffalo. And I think that's pretty good. Smokey Joe says, glad to catch you streaming. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on. And again, make sure if you haven't hit that thumbs up button, you be sure to do that and continue to join us, as not only are we covering free agency, the draft now is right around the corner. And if you watched yesterday, we did a live stream with Dan Mitchell on Hashtag Sports over on Hashtag Sports. And I agree with Dan. Dan said people have been begging us to do draft videos. And I don't do mock drafts. I don't do draft videos until free agency is well underway, because then you kind of get an idea of where the Buffalo Bills may be going in the draft. Now, the way the Buffalo Bills, the way Brandon Beane has worked this free agency period, it's the same as last year, where you could really make an argument that the Buffalo Bills could just simply go for best player available at that 30 position if they stay at 30. If they move out 30, it's still best player available, because the Buffalo Bills have decent, if not good, quality players at every single position. Now, there are some that lack depth. You can say, yeah, we can add some depth here. But you can also get that depth in later rounds. So I think this is awesome. Geek Squad comes in and says, Zach Ertz. Everyone, Zach Ertz, we're waiting to see if the Philadelphia Eagles release Zach Ertz. It's expected to have that happen at some point today. Once the Philadelphia Eagles release Zach Ertz, I believe there are 4 teams that have been said to have interest in Zach Ertz, one of those being the Buffalo Bills. So be very interested to see if the Buffalo Bills add a playmaking tight end. Again, I would be surprised if that were to happen, to be honest with you. I don't think the Buffalo Bills will go after Zach Ertz, but at the same time, who knows what Brandon Beane's thinking. I would have never thought the Buffalo Bills would went after Mitchell Trubisky, and they did. And they got him. And according to what I saw in the chat, if that's true, for a pretty cheap price. So good job by Brandon Beane, finding ways to make it work. If he wants to get Zach Ertz here, I'm sure he will find a way to make it work. But let's talk about the other news today that was announced during the press conference with Brandon Beane and Coach McDermott, and they have retained Taiwan Jones, a special teams guy for the Buffalo Bills, played with Buffalo last season, has actually spent 3 of the last 4 seasons with the Buffalo Bills. Excited to have him back in Buffalo. Excuse me, maybe not for what he adds as far as the offense, but what he adds to special teams. I think that people underrate him as a special teams guy, and I really like what he brings to this team. In 2020, he played in 47% of the Buffalo Bills special team snaps, and I think that, he only played in 4 offensive snaps, so he obviously doesn't add much to the offense. But you talk about a guy who could sign maybe a veteran minimum type deal, add some special teams, help other tight end options are drying up. Says down, hey, I still like my guy, Dan Arnold. I don't know why people are sleeping on Dan Arnold. He